Welcome back. This is the second talk in my exposition on the Shambhala teachings from my personal perspective, and derived primarily from the Sacred Path of the Warrior book, which I've held up last time, do again. We're going to get a little bit more into it. Last time I provided more of an introduction to myself, to its creator, the Dorje Dradal, the great Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and went into a little bit about the history of the teachings and the historical context of the teachings and how he was able to develop them. And I don't know how much I went into the difference between his incarnation of the teachings and the traditional elements of the teachings, as the Kala Chakra, and there's a commentary by Mipam, which I have not had an opportunity to read. It's mentioned in the book, though, where he talks about there actually being a physical location of the land of Shambhala. Now, and then I did go briefly into warriorship and what that means, and how it's not referring to making war on others in that context. It's more speaking to the terms of bravery and not being afraid of oneself. So that basically, in a nutshell, what was covered in the first series of talks. If you've already ventured into this portion, talk 2, without getting the base, you can feel free to go back and take a look at that, or even just continue here and maybe go back later. Today's talk, we're gonna talk a little bit about actual sitting meditation and some of that basic ground that you're creating from it, and what things may look like beyond that once you've enabled yourself to practice more and develop it, and how the texture and environment of your world could change. So welcome. One of the core principles in the Shambhala teachings is basic goodness, which is closely related to, in the Buddhist series of teachings, bodhicitta, which literally means awakened heart. They definitely have a close correlation and similar meaning. Basic goodness is really, it's that primordial goodness of just being a human being. It's an awakened self. And it's basically what you inherently own as a human being. It differs somewhat from a Western Christian concept of original sin, where in a way we're told that we start out bad and we need to be washed away and cleaned up, and then constantly having this feeling of this moralistic bent that we need to somehow cleanse ourselves. Well, in the Shambhala teachings, they take a somewhat different approach. They're more in the context of feeling that we are basically good, that we have the basic makeup of a human being, and that we are basically good, whole human beings. Now, one of the basic ways that you experience that and start to understand it, not as a concept but as an experience in your day-to-day life, is by examining your everyday situation, from how you hold a fork to a knife, how you wash your dishes, how you take care of your home, how you don your clothes, and just even how you look at people when you walk down the street, and how you hold yourself, good head and shoulders, head upright. There's a sense of dignity or pride of just being a basic human being, and that's the core way that we can really touch into the experience of what basic goodness is all about, and that's at the core of our own sense of being, according to the Shambhala teachings. And it's something that is beyond language, or something that can be described. Of course, it can be described in this way, where I'm merely pointing to it. To really truly understand the concept of what it means and experientially touch in on it, it's something that you have to feel and you have to nurture in your own daily life. And it's very powerful. And it's something you can contact all the time. You can get churned up and caught up in situations, and it's okay. The contact with the basic primal goodness of being alive and being a human being is always available to you. It's never something that's just owned by rich people or owned by by the clergy or owned by government officials. I mean, this is what it's like to be alive. Even if you were born with handicaps or anything, any kind of challenges, whatever. And it's not a question of being particularly intelligent. What we're talking about is something that we all can experience and is accessible to everyone. And it's a beautiful thing to experience, and it's interesting that a lot of people don't have contact with it, or maybe haven't been particularly exposed to it, and then when they first hear about it, sometimes they have difficulty understanding exactly what it is. And then I'm sure some other people, as soon as they hear it, they're like, oh, bing! And there's a sense of, yeah, I know what they're talking about. So it's appreciating things like, just like a bright color, yellow being yellow, or blue being blue, and really seeing things, not as a for or against. It's almost it's a basically neutral quality, where things, the isness of our phenomenal world is so rich and lush by itself. There's no reason for us to be putting these layers of judgment and for or against, or does this make me feel good, or does this make me feel bad, or what's in it for me. The Sakyong, who's the current head of the Shambhala lineage, came out with a book recently, been over a year now, called Ruling Your World. And he starts out by talking about the me plan and saying how getting caught up in this what's in it for me mentality that we find ourselves in is actually a barrier to experiencing such a thing as basic goodnesses, which we basically inherently have, and that we're here to help others, and we're here to be good people, and it's naturally part of our makeup as a human being, and that's what we're talking about connecting to. So that's the concept of basic goodness, and as you explore it more and understand it more, it just deepens, and there's just so much there, a certain amount of richness. So the world is not a threat. I mean, you can even see this if you look at such things. It's just the way nature goes with the 4 seasons and how things grow and they bloom, and then they kind of shrivel up and then they come out again. It's just a cycle, like the cycles of birth and death, and all of our cycles are cycles of aging, and the idea that there's a hierarchy. Some things rest high, some things rest low, or the seasons, how summer moves into fall, it moves into winter, moves into spring, and how it just continues to start up all over again. And this is like I said, is not a for or against type thing. This is just a natural flow, natural hierarchy, or natural progression that we experience, that the world has. And everything is with the cause and effects. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of inherent wisdom in the world around us. And as people, we can interact with that and become keen to it and understand it in a way in our hearts and in a way that we can know and experience, not as something that we're just going to pick up some book or something and some guy's going to tell us, and then we're just going to believe it, hook, line, sinker, and just say yeah, whatever you tell me, boss. You know, that's not the kind of experience we're talking about having here. We're talking about having a deeply personal experience, and an experience that is derived from knowing, which is true wisdom. You know, so that's the kind of goodness that we're talking about contacting, and in the Shambhala teachings, basically the path that we take to get there is the practice of sitting meditation, as taught here. We keep our eyes open. This is definitely in this tradition is something where we're warriors going out into the world. We're not drawing ourselves in and looking for just some type of personal enlightenment or some personal signpost to say, okay, yeah, I did it, and then hold it up as if it's some kind of accomplishment or something that we would even necessarily need to hide or be ashamed of. But this is more of a direct path where we take what we learn on these cushions and we bring it out forth into our world and then express our basic goodness, whether it's through art, creativity, knowledge, learning, beauty, and any of the great qualities of life that we experience. So sitting meditation is key, and it's a way to wake up and recognize and realize these qualities and to feel it firsthand in oneself, and then be able to from there express it. this definitely starts at home base, so to speak, and then blooms outward. So sort of just like the growth of a seed, how a seed is this one core thing, and then it grows and becomes more, and develops more. As humans, how we reproduce and have babies and create all these wonderful forms around us, and bring things into a solid, manifested way, and that's all driven out of our minds, and so we do need to stabilize our minds and get to a point that we can use them properly, as opposed to being used by thought, or being afraid of thought, or feeling like there's something wrong with thought, or something particularly wonderful about our thought, as if we're just such great thinker, or we just had such an insightful thought.